Like every Egyptian, I worship the sun, for who can doubt its power? I stand 78 feet tall that I might be the first to behold the sun's rise and the last to see it set. I am in fact the embodiment of one of its rays, a shaft of pure sunlight plucked by Pharaoh and planted among his people. Nothing evokes Egypt quite like me, a monumental obelisk covered in hieroglyphs with a little pyramid on top. This is the story of my extraordinary travels, told in my own words. At birth, I weighed more than 250 tons. It took an army of men with chisels and hammers to labor me out of the ground at the granite quarries near Elephantine in Upper Egypt. Workers swarmed over me for months like midwives on a mission, cutting away the parent rock that I might be delivered. I was then dragged, levered, and lifted onto a special barge to be floated down the Nile. Hailed by throngs of well-wishers along the way, I journeyed north past Thebes and Memphis to holy Onu, the city of the sun. Pharaoh Seti I intended me to stand proud before the temple of Ra. My original hieroglyphs boldly proclaim him to be the one who fills the city of Anu with shafts of dazzling light. Before Pharaoh's wish was accomplished, however, old Seti fulfilled his earthly destiny and joined with the god Osiris as ruler no longer of the living, but of the dead. It was therefore his son and successor Ramses who added the final text to me and raised me to the sky. Once upright, I marveled to see other granite pillars like me, some already 1,000 years older, stabbing the skyline of holy Onu. Hence our Egyptian name, Tekenu, meaning sky piercer. Our majesty made some men jealous, so the envious Greeks tried to belittle us with a silly name in their own language, Obeliskoi, meaning little souvlaki skewers. That name stuck, but what do we care, my brothers and I? We have made the term obelisk one to be admired throughout the world. Irritation and imitation are the sincerest forms of flattery. I never admired a pharaoh more than Ramses, nor loved one more than Seti. But after their reigns, chaos came to Egypt from the sea and from the south. When I was only 630 years old, the rampaging Assyrians descended upon Egypt. When I was 775, the Persians followed, and I watched in horror as the temples of Onu burned while its priests perished. Some of my sibling obelisks toppled to the ground, where they lay like sunbeams lost in shadow. On their behalf, I did all I could to uphold light and life in a city darkened by defeat. Only 200 years later, a young Greek king from Macedonia arrived to avenge us. Alexander liberated Egypt and overthrew the Persian Empire. I glimpsed this extraordinary lad himself when he marched through Onu, a city soon called Heliopolis in the Greek language of his successors, the Ptolemies. That dynasty endured for 3 more centuries until one of the worst days of my life, for when the last of the Ptolemies departed from Egypt, so did I. The last of the Ptolemies was Cleopatra, a true goddess and queen. Her blood was Greek, but the heart that pumped it was surely Egyptian. She loved this land, knew its history, spoke its language, and ruled its people as Seti and Ramses might have done, if not, that is, for the relentless rise of Rome. The legions of that little Latin-speaking nation far to the west had gobbled up most of the Mediterranean world, and we felt certain that Egypt would be next. Cleopatra did all she could to spare us the worst. Her charm and cunning captivated Julius Caesar, but senatorial assassins struck him down. She tried again with Mark Antony, but he was little help when Caesar's adopted son Octavian rallied the Egyptophobic Romans against them both. Antony committed suicide, as did Cleopatra, or so Octavian claimed. I was almost 1,300 years old on the day that Octavian added Egypt to the Roman Empire. In my young life I had witnessed many such conquests, each one traumatic, but none so personally humbling as the victory of Octavian over our Cleopatra. If stone could weep, I would have flooded the Nile. In the wide eyes of the Roman conquerors, I saw avarice where the Greeks had shown envy. Engineers calculated my height, my weight, and my age as they would a prospective slave. I was chosen by Octavian as the first of Egypt's many obelisks to be hauled away to Rome, that so-called eternal city that was younger than me by centuries. Once again I was laid flat, and the river waters bore my weight to the Mediterranean, whence I sailed up the tiny Tiber River as a trophy of war. I remain a captive there to this day. One of the worst things the Romans ever did, they at least did very well. Pulling me down, transporting me across the sea, and setting me up again was a remarkable feat of larcenous engineering. Even the custom-built ship used to convey me from Egypt became a spectacular tourist attraction in Rome, like your USS Alabama or HMS Victory today. By the time I was erected at the famous Circus Maximus in 10 BCE, Octavian had accepted the new name Augustus. He dared inscribe upon my base these words: Imperator Caesar Augustus, son of the divine Caesar, having reduced Egypt into the power of the Roman people, dedicated this gift to the sun. Since the Circus Maximus was itself originally designed for solar worship, I was indeed a fitting, if foreign, addition. My popularity was such that I set a new trend that eventually brought many of my brother obelisks to Rome. There are now more of us here than in any other place in the world, including Egypt. Only one obelisk still stands in Heliopolis, a lonely sentinel of Ra, while a few more live solitary lives in exile at Paris, London, Istanbul, and New York. Accustomed in Egypt to priestly solemnity and courtly ceremony, my new home bewildered me. Around me fidgeted 150,000 toga-clad fanatics screaming for entertainment. They cheered for team-colored chariots revolving around me lap by lap, the speeds at each straightaway, building hopes for spectacular crashes at the turns. When the Romans craved more blood, their rulers obliged with wild beast hunts or battles between grim-faced gladiators. I cast my shadow on the slaughter of men, bears, lions, elephants, and hippopotami. On one occasion, Augustus turned the Circus Maximus into a swampy replica of an Egyptian landscape in which men hunted crocodiles. At that moment I felt home again, and I silently roared with the delighted crowd when a toothy croc made lunch of a careless Roman. Not that I was keeping score. Imperial dynasties pass like days in the long life of an obelisk. In time, the empire that had stolen me stumbled and fell, and I along with it. I thundered to the ground, helpless to move. Earth and grass slowly smothered me until the warmth of Ra was gone. Ashamed and shivering, shattered in 3 pieces, I could only dream of Egypt. Nothing disturbed my solitude until I was nearly 28 centuries old. Renaissance antiquarians knew from ancient texts that I had once stood in the Circus Maximus, so from time to time one of them came looking for me, using, ironically enough, long spits to probe into the ground. In February 1587, my rediscovery was reported to yet another world leader, this one named Pope Sixtus V. My broken pieces were strapped onto heavy sledges and pulled through the streets of Rome until we reached the place they call the Piazza del Popolo, the Plaza of the People. There I was repaired, raised, exorcised, and capped by the symbol of yet another civilization, a cross with the pontiff's insignia. A Latin inscription proclaims, Pope Sixtus V ordered that this pitiable ruin, broken and fallen, should be exhumed, restored, moved, and dedicated to the invincible cross in 1589. I do not wear my new clothes comfortably, but when in Rome, as they say. And so it is that I, the obelisk of Seti I and of his son Ramses II, have risen and fallen and risen and fallen and risen again, like the pendulum of history itself. Where I travel next, none can say, but this I know with the certainty of sad experience. Monuments must move with the times, slowly perhaps, but inevitably. Not even an obelisk can stay put forever. I'm Dr. Frank L. Holt, thanking you for exploring with me the extraordinary legacy of the ancient world. I published an earlier version of this story in Aramco World magazine. If you enjoyed this video, please consider tapping those like and subscribe buttons to let me know, and I'll see you next time.